Spring up in the mountains is coming slowly. The tiny brooks are coming alive with snowmelt, and the very first of the wildflowers are starting to bloom. I love the pink of the alpine spring beauty, and of course the yellow of the avalanche lilies. And then, a little bit more rare, is the tiny trillium with 3 white petals. Today, I'm out harvesting more pine needles for my pine needle basket. Spring is a great time to harvest these needles because the spring winds blow them out of the trees in these fronds that are really easy to harvest. This forest is just behind my house, so it's pretty convenient that I can weave baskets from materials so close to my home. I found some pretty good ones next to the trail. I like to harvest the brown ones that are already dried because if you weave with green needles, it actually shrinks quite a bit once the basket is woven, and then the basket is really loose. So I take time to hunt down these perfectly dried, non-moldy needles in the woods. And this is a particularly nice day for doing it. All the snow has melted and the sun has come out. Sometimes I do harvest green needles and I just have to let them dry in the sun. The basket I'm working on right now is a sourdough proofing basket. I just started making sourdough bread and I realized I could make my own baskets using this method, which allows oxygen to get into the dough. It's very meditative and I like to listen to a book on tape while I work. I convinced a friend of mine who's really good at baking bread to host a Skillshare where she taught us how to make sourdough bread recently. And I have to say that getting tips from somebody who really knows what they're doing was really helpful. And I've been making beautiful loaves using techniques that I now understand. And I've actually been rising it in my oven with the light on, which warms the oven just enough to make a really good environment. Here's the first loaf I made with my pine needle basket, and I have to say the basket worked wonderfully. The loaf was able to breathe really well, so the fermentation went fantastically. This is my first ever batch of mead that's made from local honey and foraged elderberries and aronia berries, so it's got a lot of antioxidants. And I also used wild yeasts from elderberries that I started myself, and I have to say the fermentation was very active, as you can see from this beautiful macro photography that my husband was able to get. I'm also trying a pine cone wild yeast starter, and you can see from the bubbles on the surface that it's starting already to bubble, so we'll see what happens in the next couple of days. I tried this in the wintertime, and because it's so cold here in the mountains, there wasn't enough yeast on the pine cones for it to work. I'm also working on some herbal remedies to sell at a local wellness fair that I'm participating in. This is an oil made with plantain leaves that I harvested last year. Plantain is a common weed. It has nothing to do with the banana, but it's got a lot of great soothing properties that help itches and rashes and bug bites and such. This oil is made using a special method called the alcohol intermediary oil method. If you make herbal oils, I would definitely look into it. I also made this mugwort facial serum with jojoba oil and rosehip seed oil. That is absolutely amazing. It's for a class that I'm teaching later this week. This is a project that I actually made last fall with a friend of mine. It's black walnut ink, which we basically take the hulls and boil them in water and make a really reduced substance that's dark. And it makes this beautiful brown ink. We went and found a bunch of winter leaves and twigs and feathers and then took them home and drew them with the walnut ink, which was super fun. And my friend also gifted me a mushroom picture that she did with black walnut ink, and I just love the color in this picture. I'm very excited to explore other plant inks in the future. I'm also working on a winter twig identification guide for my bioregion, so I've got twigs all over the house right now and I've been doing photography with them. Thank you so much for coming along on this little journey through all the wild, wonderful things I've been working on. It's such a joy to share the magic of these plants and the quiet creativity they invite into my life. If you liked this peek behind the scenes, feel free to subscribe, leave a comment, or share it with somebody else who loves foraging, slow projects, or just feeling more connected to the land. And if you want to see how these things unfold over time, the ferments, the salves, the stories, you can follow along here or over on my Patreon where I share more of the in-between moments. Until next time, take care of yourself and maybe go see what's growing just outside your door.